Kentucky, formed in 1955. We don't receive any state, federal, or local funding. What we do is help protect historic places like this and being advocates for historic preservation. So if you like things like this, please consider being a member. We would greatly appreciate it. And then I'll just let the show go on and we'll get this tour get started.
Okay, well, thank you, Jackson. We really appreciate you all coming out here. This is the first part of May, and we haven't quite got our theater sort of dusted off and the cobwebs and swept out yet, because we opened June 10th to the public. So you're sort of seeing it behind the scenes, you know, as we're getting it ready for the public. And this is my sister, Heather. This is a family operation, and we've been doing this for a number of years.
Our whole lives, actually. And as Robbie said, Dad started it in 1950, so it's really been part of this community for 70. We're celebrating 73 seasons.
Wow. Wow. And I think your group has an architectural bent to it, or that's a particular interest. And so, you know, I'm sort of thinking about looking at it from, you know, from a point of view of someone who's interested in architecture. Our father was a seat of by the pants architect. There's a saying that he used to say.
I would just put up a board and start nailing.
He didn't believe in blueprints. So a lot of it was kind of just, he had a feeling that he wanted to build a theater, and he did. He was known for recycling and repurposing materials. Almost everything that's here was recycled and repurposed, from the wood, from the bricks, from the beams, from the MGM Raintree County train station set that was used in Raintree County with Elizabeth Taylor. He repurposed this train station set into their centerpiece box office. And I don't know how much I want to get into that, because I have a 5-minute little video PowerPoint display I'm going to show to you all. But he was,
I mean, we do like to say he was the original recycler, and he would say it was because he had no money, you know, to really build the theater of his dreams. And so he would ask somebody, hey, do you need that? What about those pile of bricks that you just tore down a building? And before they could say yes or no, he would take it. But usually they said yes, and it was the cost of just getting it off. And this, you know, at the end of MGM, it was somewhere else. It was built somewhere
7
else.
miles away on the train line between Junction City and Stanford, and he moved it almost single-handedly.
Because he said to the film company, what are you going to do? Yeah. They said, I'll take it. I'll take it.
And we say our theater started in 49 or 50, and it started in the North Point prison, but it was called Darnell Hospital, which is a mental health facility.
Mental institution.
So he started his theater in a mental institution from 49 to about 53. Then he housed actors in that green building down there from 53 till 57, and he did theater in the middle of the field. There's still a concrete slab on the other side of the cars where an evergreen tree is. You can still see a concrete slab. And he did theater there in the round from 53 to 57, the actors living upstairs in the green building. And then Raintree County came, and our father got hooked on as a location associate, location scout manager. The headquarters of Raintree County Productions was Nature's Carpet building on the other side of those evergreen trees. There's the carpet, big warehouse, and so that was the MGM headquarters. And Dad was all in working on that. So of course, when he saw that they built this beautiful train station set with a Hollywood crew, he just moved it over here.
I need it.
You know, Hollywood left, he stayed, and he started building the whole complex of 1968, you know, around the centerpiece.
Yeah. And again, every piece, every brick tells a story. I mean, everything was somewhere else before it was here. So.
And then it started being built this way. Then the indoor theater was added. Then we called this the Village, and that was added in the late 60s. He kind of imagined that to be kind of a Gatlinburg, poor man's Gatlinburg.
Outside attraction.
With shops and things. And it's got, basically now it's just filled with kind of antiques that are collecting dust.
But we were, you know, featured on American Pickers, the American my mother
And
was
they
on
actually
the
bought a
show.
couple of things.
Yeah,
you know,
my
out of
mom
there.
would sell them everything. They wanted to buy several things. But another interesting thing about the village is that, again, a lot of recycled things. There are pieces in the village. I mean, Dad imagined that as a Pioneer Danville, and there are pieces of Danville. They are the original barber chairs from the first African-American barbershop here. Those are there.
The barbershop in the village.
The very first, they're the first newspaper in town. It's actually the type prints in there. So there are pieces of Danville that exist here that a lot of people kind of forgot or didn't know about. What we used to bring everyone to lunch and dinner and the plays, that was the original firehouse bell, the Danville firehouse
Beyond
bell.
the evergreen tree is
Yeah,
a big
we'll
firehouse
show you
bell.
that.
Yeah, actually, the fire department has a new station in Danville. Said, "Can we
And
get
they
our bell
wanted
back?"
it.
We've had it for 60 years.
Sorry.
We're not going to give you your bell back.
So yeah, as we go through, we'll point out pieces, things from a livery stable in Danville. I mean, it's really bits of Danville history are here at Pioneer Playhouse.
But you'll see, we will go into this building, and you can either mask or not. You know, it is kind of breezy in there, so it's not a tight space. We will go into tighter spaces backstage, like the costume room. If you want to do this, I might when I'm going into the costume room. If we look into a dorm, Lucy, you wanted to look into a dorm room where the actors and the young actors stay. We'll probably put these on when we go into the tighter spaces. The first place we're going to go is in this building, and I'll show a little PowerPoint video slideshow. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes long, but it has some of the older pictures of the Playhouse. So, okay, you guys ready for that?
Okay. And as you come through, this is my father and my sister. Sorry.
But not everybody. And until now it has been required.
What we do for lunch, ring the bell, for rehearsal, ring the bell.
What is that rose doing? This is not the right time.
As a kid, my grandmother's house had a horn that said they used to blow, call the boys in the fields. This was in Eastern Kentucky, right in 20. And I figured out after a while, it was a fire nozzle, just a solid brass nozzle. They called it a hole.
Oh, sorry. You're okay.
Right. Yeah. Come in so you can see. Come in.
These are, our mother, when she was in Raintree County as an extra, and our father was always called the Colonel, and it was not military, but as you guys know, because you live in Kentucky, you can be a Kentucky Colonel, and he always bragged that he was twice made a Kentucky Colonel. I don't know how that happened, how they duplicated it.
And Mom always says that she's so happy that he made these cutouts of when she was younger. And he did this when he was older. So.
He tended to audition as actors in New York City, and he really believed in branding. So if he went to New York and he called himself the Colonel and he wore a string tie, the hotel maitre d's remembered him, the actors remembered him. He actually was featured in the New York Times in a feature article about himself, and they called him a small-town P.T. Barnum. I think he liked that.
He would come to New York City every spring to audition actors, so he was known in New York City. Yeah.
Okay, well here's about a 4-minute little slideshow with some of the pictures from the past. You guys ready? How this all started, it was because of this guy, Colonel Eben C. Henson. He first started, as I said, when he started his theater at the mental institution, which is now North Point. He had returned from New York City, where he had studied for only 1 year in an acting program in New York City, but he decided to bring his friends back and do theater at an auditorium at the mental hospital. This was a Louisville Courier-Journal article from 1950, which hailed the first professional theater company in Kentucky, and they did Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit. Incidentally, my mother was in the audience with a college date.
But she met Eben Henson, and she was like, no looking back from that college days.
Next, Henson moved his theater company to a slab of concrete beside the old Sunnyside Pool, which was in that field, and he performed there from 1953 to 57. This happens to be Linda Bruckheimer's. Do you guys know the Bruckheimers? This is Linda Bruckheimer's favorite aunt, Dorothy Edwards, and performing in 1953 on that slab in the field. She married her co-star and moved to New York City. Dorothy came and visited us about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And she remembered, Dad auditioning her and being in that field performing. So.
And, she said she wished she hadn't run off with her leading man to New York. It didn't work out. But she married him.
Linda and Jerry Bruckheimer are big Hollywood
producers.
And they moved back.
Bloomfield, Kentucky. They bought the whole town.
They was very into restoration
Until the late 50s, the actors lived upstairs above the old swimming pool, where there's an Ambets bar, and it's that green building I pointed out. But it must have been kind of crowded to put all the actors up there. But they were above a swimming pool. How bad could that be? The Playhouse radically changed when Colonel Eben Henson became location manager for MGM's Raintree County, which filmed in Danville in the summer of '57. Elizabeth Taylor, Montgomery Clift, Eva Marie Saint, Rod Taylor, Lee Marvin, most expensive movie at that point ever. It was big, crazy news. You guys have probably heard of everything filmed.
The biggest stars of the day, came to Danville and lived in houses, so they were your next door neighbor for 8 weeks. So it was, Danville was like, whoa! Crazy.
My mom was, an extra in it, and
There are lots of stories of people being extras and seeing Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift and
Montgomery Clift running naked through the streets of
Danville.
Danville.
He actually streaks through the streets of Danville. He sadly was on a lot of drugs and alcohol at the time. The stories of the making of Raintree County are actually more interesting than the movie.
But it is true, the movie is...
The movie was a big flop. It was like a huge flop. It was supposed to be the Northern Gone with the Wind, and it just totally flopped. They had spent so much money on it, and it flopped. And it is really boring. You often see it at 2 in the morning, like on TCM. But the stories about the making are fascinating.
And this was the train station and a train for the movie, built by the Hollywood Art Department 7 miles away near Stanford. And after Hollywood left, my dad single-handedly moved the train station set to where it sits now and turned it into his box office and the anchoring centerpiece of his dream to expand his theater. I realized I was born right around this time because I was born in the winter, January '58, so I had to be, just popping out right around the time this was going up.
And then this for us, this is my dad single-handedly with a wheelbarrow, moving things around, and that's really the spirit of my dad, and that's what we remember most is he would just get things done. He would just go out and do it.
So you see his centering box office there, and he bulldozed hillside to create an amphitheater using used brick, recycled wood, and sawmill rough lumber. I think it's interesting that he decided to pour a concrete slab that was elevated off the ground from an architectural standpoint. And when we go backstage, that concrete slab is still there. Kind of lets water drain off under it because it is a low place. Somebody asked about these buildings that were going up, and they were the actors' dormitories for 20 or 30 years. Since then, we have kind of transitioned to letting actors stay in single-wide trailers. So here at the Playhouse, if you got a single-wide, you got it made.
But up until, these over here, we actually still have 3 rooms that are operational, and some of the younger actors live there. So very rustic. And then Dad built the amphitheater, so that there would be no bad seat in the house. He would actually say that he would build it about the plans for Mayan amphitheaters.
Yeah, he did say he based it off of Mayan design. I don't know if that's true, but with a lot of people, you never know.
You'll see when you go down what it looks like now.
He begged and borrowed machinery to create his dream. There he is on a bulldozer. It probably belongs to somebody else. This shows repurposed beams from a 19th century Danville livery stable that became his dining hall and souvenir shop where you are now. So, yeah, this is a livery stable.
200-year-old hand-hewn beams. And again, they were tearing it down on Main Street in Danville, and no one wanted these. No one wanted them. So it actually cost, is this the one that costs a fifth of whiskey each?
They claim the whiskey over there for the
To bring it, not for the beams, but to have people help him carry the beams, a fifth of whiskey each. So.
You know, I don't know where he got the idea to saw logs, you know, about 3 inches thick and then varnish over them, but that's always been here since
Telephone
1958.
poles.
Telephone poles.
Yeah, he got them from the telephone company. They were old poles, and he decided to make a floor out of them. Yeah.
And brick by brick, board by board, he created a complex that actualized his dream of bringing Broadway to the bluegrass, which was one of his tag phrases, Broadway to the bluegrass. By the summer of 1958, his new theater was somewhat ready for the public. And see this, I was pointing out to Lucy and some other people, his painting is still there and unretouched since 1958. Now, Heather, you think one of these paintings has been retouched,
Yes,
but it's
yeah.
really lasted.
A long time. And look, there's Evan and Robbie right there. And there's my mom and her dog. So, you know, from the very beginning, it was always a family thing.
Yeah. He obviously decided to move the Raintree County sign that was probably on the Major's warehouse building as the headquarters of Raintree County. And he probably for a number of years was bragging about that sign and used it at his theater. He created a theater that students, actors, and artists from all over the country came to practice their art. Henson welcomed soon-to-be TV star Bo Hopkins. Notice the rock fence he designed is still in the courtyard today. Does anybody remember Bo Hopkins from Big Valley? She doesn't, but you do. A young Jim Varney in the early 70s in the center. This was in Billy Ed Wheeler's musical Fire on the Mountain. So here on our stage. In the 60s, the student program expanded with federal grants. I think our father went through a real sweet spot of actually getting some federal grants for student programs in the 60s.
And it was there was a whole movement in the 50s and 60s for summer stock theaters, and that it was part of the summer stock theater movement. So a lot of actors, young actors, would come from the city to learn the craft of acting. And, you know, there would be advertisements in trade magazines in New York City. So like, do you have John Travolta on here?
Yeah.
Okay. So like a young John Travolta, when he was 15 years old, saw an ad that said, come to Pioneer Playhouse in Danville, Kentucky to learn how to act. And that's what he did. He was 15.
This, I think, believe this is a picture that he submitted.
He was from New Jersey, came all the way down here.
Yeah.
And we have their picture there, and then we have a letter that says he remembers his very first line he ever spoke on a stage was
here. But also, there's also the rumor that Dad told him he couldn't act. Thus,
we've never gotten any
we've
funding.
never really gotten anything.
I think that made him stronger.
Yeah, you know, he made him what my dad, by telling him he couldn't act, made him what he is today.
Dad always says he liked to hang out and kind of be a 15-year-old, not wanting to do a lot of work. So that was his.
Classes were taught in all aspects of theater. The dress code was casual. There was a swimming pool on the grounds, no longer, alas.
Yeah.
We miss it. Here we see the Indian room used as a classroom in the 60s. This is the room we're in now. So it hasn't really changed. The bar is still there. They call it the Indian room. I think there's a painting of one Indian on a horse over there.
Yeah.
So that's why they call it the Indian room.
Well, an artist, we always had artists going through in the 60s and 70s, and I think just an artist painted that once, and so it became that ever since.
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a homespun artist who painted it.
Do what?
We have other art. If you turn around, Santos kind of became a well-known, famous artist, and he had a residency here in the 60s. and created a lot of art that found pieces. He was actually ended up in San Quentin for many years, and but he did one of the most famous murals at San Quentin when he was there.
And he's on Wikipedia, as an
Yeah, you can
artist.
look him up, yeah.
Santos. The company lived on the grounds, thus the art colony boast. Art colony. It's a company that lives here in the summer, so it very much is same thing. Outdoor theater glamour. In the 50s, my father toured the state parks of Kentucky with traveling actors, and I think the state park lodges were a design influence, particularly when I look at this.
And also, this is what you had to wear as an usher in the 1950s at Pioneer Playhouse. Like, the dress code has changed a lot.
He designed and built stagecoaches that carry tourists from downtown Danville to the Playhouse. A ghost town in the winter, a crazy fun house in the summer. This was where my family grew up. I think Heather is not quite created.
I'm not here. I'm not created yet. I'm the youngest. This was my sister Polly, who passed away 9 years ago, who was the artistic director for many years until her death from breast cancer.
During the mid-60s, my father presented all original plays. This gave his theater an identity as an out-of-town tryout, but tended to turn off traditional Kentucky audiences. So it kind of was more experimental in the 60s and early 70s with what it put on than it is today. One of the last additions to his compound was the Village, which was envisioned as a Gatlinburg-style tourist shop, and it provided rustic student dormitory housing upstairs. The second floor is really pretty scary, horror film scary now, but it was kind of just a very rustic student dorm.
Because at one time there would be about 50 or 60 students here every summer, so it was just teeming with people at the time.
Here it is. My mother was responsible for modernizing and air conditioning the indoor theater, which is here, which is right over there. The last building my father tried to build was he wanted to create a museum for the Playhouse, which is this shingled building here that's right beside the office. It was the first building that he ever built that the building inspector shut him down from building. But
It couldn't be grandfathered in.
Everything else was grandfathered, but then they shut him down.
And then he died a few years later, so we used it as storage and other things like that. But.
Yeah. My sister Holly, as Heather said, was artistic director. There she is on the right until her passing 10 years ago. The torch has been passed to my mother, my sister Heather, and myself. Our main staple are crowd-pleasing broad comedies. Many of you have come to see us, and we like our audiences to laugh because it's not a black box theater where the acoustics are perfect and the lighting is perfect. We have stars, we have bugs, we have crickets, we have bats, cicadas.
Actually sometimes there will be a bat flying and the audience will go, Last year there was a raccoon that went over the stage roof while the play was on.
So you're not going to be, focused on Hedda Gabler here. You're not going to be Long Day's Journey into Night. It's kind of the broad comedies.
People love the atmosphere here.
And we commission original Kentucky Voices plays that celebrate Kentucky history and culture. This is a picture from a play we created about the African American historical experience in downtown Danville on Main Street before
Second Street was the hub of African American life and business until urban renewal tore down the buildings in the 70s. And so we did a play celebrating that, worked with the Danville Boyd County African American Historical Society.
We still engage in student education outreach. And our Voices Inside Prison program brings an art engagement to those closed off behind bars. Thank you for coming to see us and learn something about our unique grassroots, family-run, 73-year-old theater under the stars. So thank you all for coming.
In a regular season, since COVID, we have gone down to, we started with 50% capacity, we're up to about 60% capacity. But this is what it would look like on a weekend night, 420 people in the audience, so pretty special.
Yeah, well, great. So we're going to go and look at, now let me go ahead and turn this off.
Give you a tour.
Give you a tour of the facilities. Lucy and Jackson, should we break it up in half and half, or should we just try to go everybody in mass? What do you think?
Up to you.
Heather, what do you think?
Maybe half and half. Since
Well, maybe those on this half can go with Heather and look at the indoor first, and
yeah.
and then I'm going back toward the backstage,
Okay.
and then I'm going to come back up this way and go that way.
Because especially when we get backstage, and if you all want to see the costume room, it does get a little windy back there. So if you want to wear masks or whatever, so yeah, people.
From there over, and go that way, and then we'll go this way.
And this is a picture of when American Pickers was here filming.
Okay.
I mean, it's where we serve people barbecue. A home-cooked barbecue meal that my brother-in-law, who was married to my sister, still does the cooking. So, you know, this really is a family. My sister died, but my brother-in-law, who was from Minnesota, stayed on to help keep it going. This is the stage where my mom has been singing and performing for dinner guests for 50 years. And she still practices. She's 92 years old. She will still be singing and playing guitar this summer. So again, all of these beams, all of the shingles, everything recycled material. All of the actors in the summer, we feed them lunch and dinner, the whole company. And so they will come, and we are like a family. We eat at noon and 6 o'clock, and then we perform, we rehearse. We're together all summer for 12 weeks. It's like a big family. And this is the indoor. So this is the shelter house. This is the indoor theater. Yeah, see, if you all want to sit for a little bit, if some of you are tired, we're going to be walking more. This building, again, these were hand-hewn beams that were at a Center College building that they tore down in the 60s. And again, no one wanted that. I mean, can you imagine these days, people saying they really didn't want these old beams for something? People really didn't value back then kind of the old things. They wanted new. And so my dad really took advantage of that. And these came from Center. This flooring came from Center, the same building that was being torn down. And my mother actually remembered today, she was telling me how this had carpeting on it. So when they brought it here, they actually had to take all of the carpeting off and refinish the floor. And look at it today. So, you know, this is an incredibly old floor that we still use a lot. We rent this space. Up until COVID, we would actually move inside at the drop of a hat. So if it rains, we never cancel a show. We would come inside. We had duplicate set here. So say it would start raining halfway through a show. We would stop, pick up we would have a duplicate set that the actors would actually bring the props. We'd take 15 minutes, we'd start here. Since COVID, we decided not to move inside, and in all honesty, we kind of felt like we're an outdoor theater. And one of the things that people love about Pioneer Playhouse is being outdoors, under the stars. We're doing plays that have less actors in them than we used to pre-COVID, and so we don't have that huge company we used to build an alternate set and to really move things inside. So we've decided to stay outside. We bring an umbrella. We stay out unless it's really severe weather. We still don't cancel a show, but we don't use this as much in the summer. But the rest of the year, we rent this building out. You can rent it for parties, weddings. There's a wedding this weekend, and people love. You know, it's a pretty cool looking building. A few years ago, when we were still doing indoor shows, we got a grant from the Kentucky Colonels to make this stage a raked stage because the audience would be flat here, and so it would sometimes be hard to see what was going on stage. And so we actually made a raked stage so that the actors you could see. Now, that floor again from reclaimed material. These oxen, Roy Rogers in the 1950s decided to start a restaurant, a fast food restaurant. Does that ring a bell? Roy Rogers? Okay, yeah. So part of his gimmick was the oxen actually traveled across the country from California. Here, I don't know why Kentucky actually, now that I think about it, pulling a wagon, and then they were slaughtered at the end of the trip. I don't know why that was such a great, advertising thing. But those are the oxen from Roy Rogers' original campaign for his restaurant. And my dad again, ended up with them. Hey, I'll take those. No one else wants them.
I'm going to ask you about the stage. It looks like it has a very definite tilt.
That's what raked is. So that is called
a
a
standard
raked.
thing for a raised stage.
A raked stage is a tilted stage. So if I'm an actor, and there are a couple of actors here, you're going to be able to see all of the action up here, because it's raked. Do you understand? That's fun. Because when you go outside, it's an amphitheater style seating, but here it was flat, and so people had a hard time seeing. So we made the stage raised and raked.
If they drop something around, it would roll.
Yeah. So they have to be careful. And if I remember one year we had a show with roller skates, and that was a little hard, a little dangerous. Over here, and the two guys in the back. Those are solid wood giants. They're Chopin and Beethoven, I believe. And I always thought that my father got them from a music store that was closing in Cincinnati, but my mother just told me today that it was a bootlegger in Cincinnati who had gotten them for some reason and didn't want them anymore, and so gave them to my dad. And you all can go up and touch things, but they're pretty remarkable. There are photographs on this side of the making of Pioneer Playhouse. Some of the photographs that you saw in the film that Robbie did. Over here is the making of Raintree County. All the historical photographs of the making. We're one of the only places that has an exhibit of the making of Raintree County. And again, we did a Raintree County festival about 12 years ago, where we commissioned an original play about the making of Raintree County. We did people came and talked about their experiences. It was really, it was a community event that really brought people together. And there's some beautiful he was gorgeous.
I remember getting this and watching it a while back.
And he would say
I don't remember much about it.
all of the big stars of the day. And actually, an interesting story of Montgomery Clift. One of the reasons that he sadly was on drugs and alcohol all the time is because during the filming of Raintree County, the interiors were all filmed in Hollywood, and there was a terrible car accident halfway through the filming, and he actually almost died. And he was disfigured, and so from the rest of the film, they actually only showed him from one side of his face, and so he was in immense pain during the rest of the filming of the movie.
Did he recover from it, have plastic surgery or something?
I honestly don't know, how much plastic surgery he had. They had to pause for a long time, so he was kind of fixed by the time he got here to Danville, but was still in a lot of pain.
Was that Montgomery?
Montgomery Clift.
Yeah. They told some wild stories about some of the stuff he did
Yeah.
while he was here.
He ran down Main Street naked. Yeah. Yes.
And I was just saying, my first cousin, he was over here in the middle 60s.
Okay.
And
That sounds familiar.
radio station there. I probably just called him right, but it was funny.
Okay. Well, it's not that different. It's performing in a way. Okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Dad really, again, he was actually friends with the location, the original location out for and they were trying to move, and Dad really talked them into doing the exteriors here. So all of the exteriors were filmed here, so the parallel battlefields, they recreated some more. This is a house on 3rd Street. The Rhodes House, so lots of history. Yes, it does. And you all can ask me questions while we're looking at the photos, and then we'll head out. We'll go toward the backstage.
I saw that you made a stage debut over in this corner.
I did. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up on stage. I mean, it was not that unusual for all of us to, at some point, be on stage. So definitely from the time I could walk, I was on stage. When I went away to college, I went to college in New York. I actually got tired of theater, and I went in a different direction for a while. I became a writer. I write children's books for picture books and middle grade and young adult novels. But I moved back to Kentucky after my father died, and really we all just kind of together when Dad died to keep it going. Holly was the main one, and then Holly became ill, and that's when I really stepped back in. So I don't get on stage anymore, except every night I introduce the plays and the shows, but I don't act. And Robbie directs. I'm more the manager. I manage everything. Robbie directs one play a year. He writes plays. He's a filmmaker. He was a filmmaker in LA before moving back full time. Okay, so most of you will know. This is stir fried chicken. Yeah, that was it several years ago. Yeah. You do the barbecue, the pulled pork. That would be easier. Yeah, it is.
There's old Pueblo 6.
All right, you all want to come out and we'll head down backstage. I know, I'm sorry. Lucy, that was a good person. It was kind of weird. Like, why? We used to have a photograph of the oxen when they were alive. But I don't know where that went.
And now they're appropriately memorialized.
Yes, they are. And Dad and Mom both, just over the course of his lifetime, just collected lots of stuff like that. 2-seater bicycle, bicycle made for two, just lots of stuff they just would collect. And when we're done backstage, you all are welcome to go through the village and look through the buildings on your own, and just very interesting. These were windows that there was a First Christian Church in Danville that burned in, I think in the mid-60s. And these are windows from that. So we really do have little pieces of Danville, everywhere. The restrooms are here if anyone needs to. And we got a grant from the Kentucky Colonels to redo the women's bathroom. So the women are really lucky. They got a really nice one.
Yes, it's very nice.
Over here was last year's company, so that's the typical size of the company that we have now. Again, we used to have about 30, but we've downsized since COVID, and we kind of like keeping things small now. In all honesty, it's more manageable for us now.
Yeah, I'd say those stairs are probably the best way if you want to see the dorm room. You know, the red barn is also good. I took
Right,
things.
okay,
Show that.
yeah. So take a look at, this is, you know, Dad's vision of, I do think he was influenced by Mayan design and making it an amphitheater where everyone could see. The acoustics are really naturally good. We do mic the stage, but they are naturally good. And there is our stairs. Hold on. Yes, everyone hold on to the railing.
And there's a second room if anybody wants to share.
And all of these bricks, I mean, total recycled. You know, they were not new bricks when my dad laid them. They were old bricks that had come from other buildings, other places.
See if you guys would want to live here for this summer.
These were highway lights that the Department of Highways, they were getting rid of, and my dad said, hey, I'll use them for my house lights.
What a guy. Upcycling.
What do you think? You want to move in?
This is the stage. Anyone who's ever wanted to be on Pioneer Playhouse stage, now's your chance. Woo! And this is Buster. He is our lucky charm. He's in every play. You have to find him somewhere. He's somewhere hidden, or kind of off to the side in every play we do. He's our good luck charm.
He's your Easter egg. Yeah.
So yeah, at some point, Dad, I can't remember how long ago he decided to build a roof over the actors. So again, like that's one of the reasons we can keep going when it's kind of sprinkling, is that the actors are protected, and you're out there and you can have an umbrella or raincoat, but the set and the actors don't get wet. So yeah, this is it. This is the stage.
What did you say that?
So these are dorms where actors, for 50 years, lived in these dorms. We only have now 4 rooms that still house the younger members of the crew. It's kind of like a rustic, summer camp for actors. We have trailers that we also house them in now. But for many years, this is where all of the actors live. They all live in these dorms.
How many bathrooms do you have?
We still only have, we have 1 women's that has about 6 stalls and 6 showers. So everything is communal and 1 men's bathroom. But the thing is now that we have trailers, they do get their own bathrooms. But for a long time, the bathrooms that you all went to, so that's where everybody goes, even from living over here.
Oh, wow.
1 bathroom. It was a different time. I think kids now, when they go to college, the dorm rooms are so nice, and so they would come here and they would be like, yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go backstage. And again, we always feel like this isn't the prettiest time. We haven't totally cleaned things up. We haven't totally painted. So it's a little rough back here, but this is where the magic happens. Yeah, everything you see on the walls or hanging, they've been props or they've been something that was used. We had a King Kong hand that came through a doorway in one play a few years ago. That's the King Kong hand. You have lots of signs from lots of different plays. So everything ends up here. Back there it's called the catacombs. It's where we keep...
Oh, my.
Yeah, catacombs. Woo! It's where we keep the flats and wood that we use to build the set. So again, we build the sets. The actors who are here, they act in the plays, but they also help build the sets. They paint. We now do 3 shows in 10 weeks. We used to do 5 shows in 10 weeks, a different show every 2 weeks. And so we would be changing sets that quickly, and it was very grueling. Now we're doing the 3 shows. It's not quite as hard, but we still close on a Saturday. We open on a Tuesday. All the set has to be totally different. So it's a lot of work. So we're going to go through the costume room, and we can wind through, kind of snake through, and you can go at your own pace. But this is the costume room that
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Look at all of these.
Oh my gosh. Somebody keep an eye on Lucy.
We do. We've stopped actually taking donations because we're pretty full right now. But we do. You know,
Oh my gosh.
I know. Wow.
And how do they even get the stuff off the racks up there?
I would say they probably have some kind of hooks
Yeah.
somewhere that we will see.
we have a few of those. We do have a few of those, and in all honesty, it's a little hard to keep fur down here. You all, it is musky down here. Oh, okay. We have to air out things. We put mothballs in the winter. We try to. Did anybody see the Turtle Man episodes that were filmed here? Turtle Man. It was on Animal Planet. It was reality. No, reality. Turtle Man was a butterfly. But he was getting his own show. He got a lot of things. And he filmed an episode that said getting snakes out of the classroom.
Here's the thing.
Well, they brought those snakes in. Reality shows are not real, and so they actually have to bring the snakes.
There's probably plenty more too. Yeah.
I like that. I love that.
That's why I said someone keep an eye on Lucy. Excuse me.
No, we did. They bought
Did all that.
We weren't the main focus, but they had found a mystery.
Practical one for us, you know?
No, they found it here. This is the paint room where we keep a lot of paints and these are the signs that we're going to want to displays. Yeah, we've done plays. Elvis is very popular. We've done plays with Elvis themes. We have an Elvis tribute artist who's performing at the end of our season this year. So we've had a lot of success with doing Elvis things here. This was actually my dad. You know, my dad was such a big dreamer. Always was thinking of the next thing. He actually built this amphitheater so that they could be doing one show, not at the same time, but they would have a set, they would do one show and then a different night do that show. So they never had to switch sets. They had it already built. This stopped being used, I think in the early 70s it really stopped being used. And so it's just a place where the actors hang out backstage when in between scenes, and they do a bonfire here sometimes. But it's kind of, again, this was a Greek amphitheater model. This is what he modeled it after.
Would these be more experimental plays?
Yeah. And then you can see like there are rickety stairs that go from up at the top. Actors, you can come backstage that way. Actually, a few years ago, well, it's been longer than that. You see the air conditioners in the rooms still. We used to still have all of those rooms operational, but it was many years before we got air conditioning in those rooms. So for many, many, many years, actors would just be sweaty all summer long. Woodstock is a hard business. It's not easy.
Welcome to Kentucky.
Not anymore. We're one of the last in the country that still do it the way that we do it. I mean, it really is not done that much anymore, and we're one of the still only continuously operated summer stocks in the country. I mean, probably in the 50s there were like hundreds of them around the country, and there's probably 10 now, and maybe only 5 that are doing kind of what we do. I mean, Stephen Foster's story is similar. I mean, we started around the same time, but they do one play. I think they do another musical sometimes. But we are the only theater that did multiple plays. And the actors rehearse during the day, and they perform a different show at night. And then on the strike weekend, they have to help tear down the set and build it. So again, it's a lot of work.
How many plays do you put on in a typical season?
We used to do 5 shows in 10 weeks, so a different show every 2 weeks. So actors were learning a new show in 10 days.
And it was the same actors throughout?
Yes. Now, since COVID, we've gone to 3 shows. We do each show 3 weeks instead of the 2 weeks, so we have that extra week, and it does make a huge difference. The actors who have been with us for a long time are like, "Oh my gosh, a 3-week show is amazing!" It's like a vacation doing 3 weeks. And we do have actors. We have a few that one actress has been coming for 25 years. She's our leading lady. We have a few actors that have been 10 years, 8 years. So we have returning actors every year. Here is where they get dressed. This is the green room and where they put on their makeup and get ready for the night.
Oh, wow.
And it's a tradition to write your name when you've been here and to write your year. So that's why you'll see all of the names of actors who have been here. This is the women's side. This is the women's dressing room.
Very careful.
This is Pat, who's been here for 25 years.
Oh.
That big red light bar, is that for your extra plants and other stuff?
My dad, I'll talk about that when we go. My dad actually built it as a sound stage, like a Hollywood sound stage. But yeah, go through and let other people, and then we'll. So this is the women's side, and that's the men's side over there.
All right.
And again, some people you'll notice, a few people have returned. They put their year, multiple years.
That's really cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, it's Bogart? Okay.
Huh? He's a cousin. Oh, of you? No, of the. Oh, okay.
Right.
That'd be fun.
Right. Yeah, you can see Evan French Maston in there, multiple years on the
Sorry.
wall. Well, it's always a lot to keep this place. You get it up.
down and in no time it'll be right.
Yeah, it is a lot of work to keep this place, to get it up and running, because in the winter it's kind of all shut down, shut off, and yeah, getting it all into shape by summer. Oh yeah.
These box Velcro. Whereas now even has a little bit more heart shape. So you want to be careful around stuff.
Box sales, is that what it is? Always come phone calls.
Dad used to have these covered wagons, like tractors, and we would be in parades, or we'd take people from downtown to Pioneer Playhouse. I mean, as you can imagine, growing up here was like amazing. I remember there was a big, well, there's still a rope there, but when I was a kid, we would swing on that rope. I mean, it's amazing, that we're still alive, in all honesty. But those were the days the parents would say, hey, see you later, and we were gone. But this was quite a place to grow up, I have to say.
How many acres is the property?
This is 30 acres.
Okay.
So there's woods back here. The actors can walk through the woods. It's also a campground, as you noticed when you came through. Tourists, it used to be only tourists, and now the past few years, honestly, since COVID, they're more long-termers who are living in their campers, and they're year-round, and so that's what you saw when you came through. But Dad always envisioned, campground, a place to come, see shows. You could do everything here. So we used to.
When was the last time you guys did that? It's such a cute.
I know, gosh, look how full they are of stuff. It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. You'll show you that. Where's this one?
everything else is original old. We try to patch things when we can.
The bricks are awesome.
Yeah, she said that. He's in every place. And whoever wants to come in and experience an actor's room for themselves, you're welcome to just watch your step. We go in these two open doors.
Sure.
And again, the three up here, we still will put the assistant stage manager and a couple of the younger actors we put in these doors.
Oh, it's like a nursery in here. Oh my God. Little bitty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Teeny weeny. Let's sneak out behind it.
You like to spend a summer there?
Oh, thank you. Getting flashbacks of like the Parent Trap cabins, you know, Arapaho.
Dresser, closet, chair and a stool.
But they do have window
No
units.
place to plug in your
Window
phone
units.
charger. There's one over here. Oh, there it is. Okay.
I think someone had dogs.
Yeah.
Been chewed.
How's everybody seeing everything?
I've seen you at the,
Is this a better room than the others?
you
Yes.
came after I left, but that's where I remember it.
Excuse me.
All right, let's sneak out of here. Excuse me.
You know, we had someone and he actually just suddenly died recently. It was very sad. He was our person that took care of everything. So yeah, right now we rely a lot on volunteers. We really are. Are you?
Because it just got, like you were saying, it just gets recycled or ripped apart and becomes trim or something else.
Oh, that's a nice shot with the rose bushes.
You want to give us a ring to end the detours?
Oh, in front?
Yeah.
That's how we're able to stay open and so many volunteers.
Marilyn Monroe's
We have the core staff, of course.
End of the tour. Come back this summer.
Thank you.